The day before our divorce, my husband crawled into bed and said, "One last time." Then this happened. The night before our divorce, I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself I was ready to let go. After months of arguments, silence, and pretending everything was fine, we both knew our marriage was over. The papers were signed, the date was set, and the next morning we would walk away as strangers. I had rehearsed it in my mind 100 times. How it would feel to finally be free, to finally stop hurting. But that night, as I sat alone in our empty bedroom, I heard the sound of the door opening. He walked in quietly, almost like he didn't belong there anymore. Without saying much, he crawled into bed beside me, his voice breaking as he whispered, "One last time." I froze. My heart raced. Part of me wanted to push him away, but another part, the part that still remembered how he used to hold me, couldn't move. That moment changed everything. The house was quiet that night. Too quiet. Every sound echoed, every clock tick felt like a reminder that by this time tomorrow, we'd be done. I had folded the divorce papers neatly on the nightstand, right beside the lamp he once fixed when we first moved in together. It's strange how ordinary things can feel like ghosts of the life you built. When he came in, I didn't expect it. I thought he'd gone to stay with his brother. He stood at the doorway, his silhouette soft under the dim light, holding something. Maybe courage, maybe regret. His eyes were tired but gentle, like he'd finally stopped fighting. He didn't say much at first, just walked over, sat on the edge of the bed, and whispered, "Can I stay here tonight?" I didn't answer. My silence said everything. He slowly lay down beside me, close enough that I could feel his breath on my neck. The space between us, once filled with anger, now carried only silence and memory. Then he whispered, "One last time." Something in me broke. Maybe it was the love I'd buried under months of hurt. Maybe it was just loneliness. I turned toward him, and in that moment, words disappeared. There was only the warmth of his hand finding mine, the way his heartbeat synced with mine, and the quiet realization that endings don't always feel like freedom. Sometimes they feel like loss wearing peace as a disguise. As I lay there beside him, it felt like time folded in on itself. Every memory I'd tried to lock away came rushing back. Our first date under the rain, his awkward jokes that used to make me laugh until I cried, the night we danced barefoot in the kitchen after getting our first apartment. For a few moments, the bitterness between us vanished, replaced by the ghost of what used to be. He turned toward me, tracing the lines on my hand like he was memorizing them. "Do you ever think about how we got here?" he asked quietly. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat tightened. I wanted to scream that I did think about it every single day, but thinking never fixed anything. He sighed, then said, "I thought letting you go would make it easier." But it doesn't. It just feels like I'm losing my best friend. That broke me. We talked, and really talked, and for the first time in months, about the small misunderstandings that grew into walls, about the dreams we'd let die, and about the moments when love turned into survival. I realized how two people could still love each other deeply and still not know how to stay together. As dawn approached, the air felt heavier, like the universe was holding its breath for us. I wanted to freeze that moment, to live in the stillness between goodbye and regret. Because for those few hours, we weren't broken anymore. We were just us. Two souls holding on to the last thread of something beautiful that once was. Just before the sun rose, I felt him shift beside me. His hand brushed my cheek, and when I opened my eyes, his were already wet with tears. I had never seen him cry like that, not even when things fell apart. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, his voice trembling. My heart stopped. I thought maybe he'd fallen in love with someone else, or that he wanted to confess something that would break me all over again. But what he said next wasn't what I expected. "I didn't sign the papers," he whispered. "I couldn't. Every time I looked at your name, I couldn't make myself end it." I didn't know whether to be angry or relieved. A part of me wanted to shout, to tell him that this was too late, that the time for fixing things had passed. But another part, the part that still felt his warmth beside me, wanted to believe him. He pulled out an envelope from the nightstand. Inside wasn't the divorce file, it was a letter. He had written it days ago, but never had the courage to give it to me. It wasn't long, but every word hit like a storm. I miss you. Not the version of us that fought, but the version that laughed. I still believe she's in there, the woman who made me want to be better. I'm sorry I forgot how to love you right. I couldn't speak. I just stared at him, realizing that maybe this night wasn't our ending. Maybe it was something else, a painful, unexpected beginning. The first rays of sunlight slipped through the curtains, painting the room in soft gold. It should have felt like a new day, but instead it felt like the morning after a storm, calm but uncertain. He was still beside me, half asleep, his hand resting on mine. For the first time in months, I didn't pull away. But reality crept in quickly. The world outside hadn't paused for our fragile moment of peace. There were still decisions waiting to be made, signatures needed, and a future that was now split in two. I sat up, quietly, trying to steady my breath. He woke and looked at me, his eyes searching for an answer I didn't yet have. "Was it a mistake?" he asked softly. I shook my head, tears spilling down my cheeks. "No," I said, "but I don't know what it means." We made coffee, like we used to, standing in the same kitchen where we'd once argued about who forgot to buy milk. But this time, there was silence. A gentle, almost sacred kind. He smiled weakly, saying, "You still take 2 sugars." I laughed through my tears. It felt real. It felt like us. Before he left for work, he turned back at the door and said, "Maybe it's not too late." I didn't answer because I didn't want to lie. I just nodded, hoping that maybe, just maybe, love had one more chance to find us again. When the door closed behind him, I stared at the untouched divorce papers on the table. For the first time, I didn't know whether to sign them or burn them. Days passed, and the silence between us turned into messages. Short at first, then longer. We started meeting for coffee, talking like friends instead of strangers. He apologized in small ways, showing up on time, listening instead of arguing, remembering things I thought he'd forgotten. I wasn't sure if it was love again or just the comfort of something familiar. But one morning, I got a call that changed everything. He'd been in an accident on his way to work. The world froze, my hands trembled as I rushed to the hospital. When I saw him, lying there with tubes and wires, everything else faded. The fights, the anger, the divorce. All I could think was, please don't go. He survived, bruised, broken, but alive. When he opened his eyes, he whispered, "You were the first person I thought of." And that was when I knew sometimes life gives you one last chance to choose, not out of guilt or habit, but out of truth. A month later, we didn't sign the divorce papers. Instead, we burned them together, standing in the backyard under the same stars that once witnessed our vows. We didn't promise forever this time. We just promised to try again, one day at a time. And maybe that's what love really is. Not perfect, not constant, but choosing each other again, even after you've fallen apart,